Oh,
Oh, hi.
hello.
Hey.
That's not supposed to happen. So we will make it happen.
Fancy cup of water, 11 degrees, extra ice, extra water, no foam, with room, flat lid, and upside down for... Yeah.
What kind of order was that?
I have a fancy cup of water, 11 degrees, extra ice, extra water, no foam, with room, flat lid, and upside down for...
Oh, that's their name. I missed that the first time. That's the name they put in.
A venti cup of water, 11 degrees, extra ice, extra water, no foam, with no room, flat lid, upside down. I didn't know you could do all that.
I think that was a joke. I don't think the fact that they put it as the name.
Okay, that part's a joke, but what about the whole flat lid thing? I never knew you could just ask for a flat lid with no room. I mean, is that all real, or was this a whole joke, or because I know that these things get complex, Doug. Like you go in there and you hear these people talk about, like, you hear these people order, and you're like, really? So
yeah. How do you? My question is for those folks is, how do you figure out that's what you like?
Right.
Where did you come up with the time to sit there and go, 3 pumps of that, 1 pump of this, half light, half like it gets really precise, and it's, I don't know where you figure out that that's what you like.
I don't know, but I forgot to welcome everybody to Brothers and Booze, the Friday edition. The Friday edition. Is there another one? It's been a crazy week, Doug, so I'm going to jump right in here with working drafts, vanilla coffee cream ale.
With Rusty Dog coffee.
With Rusty Dog coffee. And it's a nice, somewhat clean glass.
Yeah, I tried a little thing with your cleaning the glass beforehand, like you recommended. We'll see if that works tonight.
I did it too, and what happened? So, anyway, let's see how this one goes. Ooh, moderate coffee. You can still tell it's a cream ale. It has those that light crisp element of it, but the coffee is really, really nice. Not too much. We're coffee heads, so we don't care if you get beat over the head with coffee, but not with a cream ale, though. I think we want a little bit of subtlety in our coffee, don't we?
Yeah, I agree. Like if you have that, or like a coffee blonde, something like that, you don't want the coffee overtaking it, because the flavor's a little more delicate in a blonde and a cream ale than I think with a porter or stout, where they're more robusty and roasty. Yeah, and as luck would have it, I actually picked a cream ale to have first as well, and we didn't plan this at all. So
we didn't mean to. We never.
I picked from Lucky here Cream Jeans cream ale.
Cream Jeans. Okay, there.
All right, so I say usually I'm a can art person, can art man, but that name I kind of was compelled because my humor is that of a 12-year-old. So I'm pulling out a glass I rarely use just because it's freaking enormous. This doesn't have any coffee or any fancy stuff. This is straight up cream ale. Obviously, that glass cleaning trick didn't work very well for me either. Look at all those bubbles. I tried, Greg. This one was a little harder.
I tried too. Right. Just wasn't in the works this week.
Yeah, but it's got a nice head, holds it really well. So
Right.
cream jeans. Oh, that's really nice. They said that nice, smooth cream ale taste. Really good if it was hotter, like if it was summer.
Mhm.
Like I don't know if that's. I mean, the coffee might be a little different for yours with the cream ale, but the cream ale itself, I really like that. And it's a little bit hazy, which is what you want. So
Daniel Fisher says that he loves when he goes to the Starbucks or whatever, and he murders his wife's name every time. So it's Cheryl. But I've seen obvious Cheryl, but I've seen Cheryl. That's Cheryl. Right? Cheryl.
I shot the Cheryl.
Right.
Wow.
Have you seen those ones where they put like I don't know what happens, but like they put like rude bitch on there. Did you see that one? Or like,
yeah, they have ones where they put
right. But you guys know that the customer eventually sees that, right? I
you
mean,
would think they do, but
or do they do that on purpose? Like,
man, that's some ballsy shit if you're doing that on purpose. You're not liking your job too much if you can think you can get away with that, or maybe not get away with it. Maybe that's
right. I just think it's like a slip of the mind. You're just like punching it in and you're like, she's such a rude, and then you just put it in there and then it's, I don't know. But anyway, Doug, on to our guest this week is one of our friends from the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. We talked to his wife, Paige, about 2 months ago.
I'm not even sure it was that long, but hey, time's a flat circle, as we've said many times, so could be 2 months.
Absolutely. But they're both two wonderful personalities, as I was explaining earlier today, that we had to have them both at two different times to talk about what they do and what they get into. They're both very dynamic as far as, in my opinion, as far as what they like and what they're into. I met Rick at one of the Beer Bloggers conferences with his wife, and one of the funny things that we had going is that, like, I met them, and I mean, they were clearly there together, but I didn't put it that they were there, like, married until, like, long after that, and it was a real duh moment for me. You ever have those moments where, like, something is just real, it's, like, right in your face, and you still don't get it, and you're like, and then later, you know, Joe says, "Hey, Doug, you know that this and this and this," and you're like, "What?"
That happens. That happens all the time.
I was gonna say too many times to count this week.
I'm in, yeah, just this week, yes. But normally, just like I'm in my own little headspace so much around the house that there's lots of times I miss those sort of really simple connections like that. So you're not alone, my friend.
Yeah, and I make fun of myself for it, and we laugh about it. But, you know, when you go to these conferences, sometimes it's hard to keep everything that's rolling and all the people that you're meeting and all kind of like in your head while everything's rolling. So without further ado, we're going to bring on our friend, Rick Didora. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of things like, hey, Rick.
Hey.
How y'all doing? Or how you doing?
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I mean, things, you know, things are strange as can be expected. But, you know, I'm happy to be on this show. I know we planned this like 2 months ago, so I'm happy we get to sit down and chat and have some beers.
Yeah, what's in the glass?
Nothing yet. I'm about to crack a little Shell's Keller Pills.
Ooh.
Yeah, Shell's. For the trivia folk, is America's second oldest family-owned brewery, behind Youngling, I believe. They're out in New Ulm. They focus on just classic German lagers for the most part, although a few years ago they did crank out an IPA. Because you got that. And yeah, they just make.
Was it good, Rick? Was the IPA good?
They still do it, actually. It's called, I think it might just be called Shell's IPA. And it's just a nice, easy, like West Coast. I think most people would actually just call it a pale ale. And I think that's a little more their speed. because beyond their brilliant lager program, like you can see with this, they actually, Paige just talked about this, their 7th generation brewmaster Jace is becoming a little bit of a master of Berliner Weiss. And so they have an entire extra brand of Berliner Weiss beers that are all just remarkably good. Truly some of the best beers I've ever had.
What? Okay. So you took my thunder on this because when I was up there for BrewCon, HomebrewCon, they had a booth there, and I rode up to the booth, and that's all they had was the Berliner Weisses, and it was the beginning of like their rollout, or it was one of their first couple ones, and those were some of the best beers I've ever tasted in my whole life. And I was blown away by who they were and what they were presenting. And I was talking to the brewer there, and it was just a fantastic time. So it's really, really crazy that you say the almost exact same thing about their Berliner Weisses that I do. They are world class. I'm telling you, man. Like it's just a balance. It's just everything.
We have kind of like an unwritten rule in our house, which is like if you see a bottle of one of the Schell's Berliner Weiss on the shelf, just buy it. And at the beginning they were releasing like a different variation like I think it was every year almost. Like it was a slow rollout, and now there's a ton more of them. But like, yeah, especially back in the day, I mean, they did this dark sour, and I've never tasted a beer like that ever again. It was low percent, like 4%. It was just jet black, poured like a stout. And then when you smelled it, it was like raspberries and currants with this like hint of coffee. And then when you drank it, you got that. You got like in the way that you'd get like a really berry forward coffee. It was just outstanding.
Rick, are you familiar with real quick? Rick, are you familiar with generally with the distribution areas? So are they? Can we find them kind of out of Minnesota, or do we have to be really tight up there?
That's a great question because I
don't see much of it here. I don't see much of it here.
And I think I'm guessing that they fall under the same distributorship as Schell's, despite the fact that they're a separate brand. So I think that would mean that they only go where Schell's goes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I mean, I have heard rumors of folks finding their stuff in really strange places. So I don't know if they've maybe got another distributorship with maybe a smaller like premium import brand or something like that. But
so you got a question on this, or I was going to move on?
I was going to ask about the idea of a dark sour. So that was actually, you said it was a sour, but it pours like a stout. I mean, I'm not a big sour fan, so like I don't drink a lot of them, but I don't think that's a common thing to find. Is it?
I don't think it is either. That was the first time I had ever seen something quite like that. We actually did one at Dangerous Man that some folks at the brewery still to this day hold true that it's one of the best beers we've ever made. And it was truly a staff favorite. And that's not to say that our regular drinkers didn't love it. People did, but like it was one of those where like it was a dark raspberry sour, and I don't know how those guys did it, but it was like that. It had that little coffee to it. It had the little raspberry, but then it just had this undercurrent of like milk chocolate somehow. And not in the way that you see like lactose over-fruited sours that, can be a little ridiculous nowadays. It was just like a clean, easy sour. So yeah, the history of a dark sour, I'm honestly not sure. That would probably be a good question for Paige, actually.
So you mentioned one of your current places that you work. I could be wrong. Maybe more one place to work, but we don't have to go there. But one of the places of current work is the Dangerous Man Brewing Company in Minneapolis. They are, I don't know, I wouldn't, they are definitely regionally famous. Probably nationally famous too. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about real quick though is this one of the things that Dangerous Man Brewing is known. They're known for two things in the region, Doug. They're known for their peanut butter porter, which is smashing, and they're also known for they were one of the pioneers or one of the first breweries to really come out with the milkshake IPA.
Yeah.
And when Dangerous Man came out with the milkshake IPA, Doug, this is when there were no milkshake IPAs. There were none. And people were like, well, what's a milkshake IPA? And the way that they make theirs and the way that, I don't know, it's presented is just a fantastic, it's just great. And I know that, we don't, the milkshake IPA has taken a little bit hit over the years. And I wanted to address this real quick. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant. When these new IPAs come out, or when these new styles come out, in my opinion, if you don't get them early, you might get a bad view of them. This is my point. These like Creek IPAs and these whether it be hazy IPAs hit the ground. The first breweries that make them are making damn good ones because they were the first ones to do it. And everybody's like, oh, grab them for the hazies. 6 months in, now everybody's making a hazy. And now if you roll up to a brewery, you might get some hazy that some brewer just wanted to make because the one up the street made one. Or you might get, I think when these new styles come out, the quality goes down the longer they're out because people just start making them just to make them. And also the experimentation comes in where people try to change a hazy to a juicy, and then now it's a juicy. So my point is that Dangerous Man came out with the milkshake IPA before it was cool. And it was just an amazing beer. And it was just great because it was like pioneering. And now I think the whole milkshake thing is kind of like watered down because, again, as I said, everybody started making them and people started making lackluster ones. And then the whole thing gets flooded. And then if Doug wants to, Doug didn't have Dangerous Man milkshake. But he might run up on somebody else's milkshake and be like, this is garbage. What is Greg talking about? How these milkshakes are amazing. But I had the Dangerous Man ones. So I don't know if you guys, Rick and then Doug, I don't know if you guys want to jump off on that little rant that I went on, which is like, when these new styles hit, sometimes I think that's the best time to get them because they start to figuratively and literally sometimes get watered down. Right.
So the interesting thing though about our milkshake IPA, the very first one we ever did was a boysenberry milkshake IPA. And I'll go on a small rant too. You know me, I like to rant. Two things happened that day. One, it was a Wednesday when we released it. And it was something the brewers had been kind of curious about. They'd heard about like this milkshake IPA thing. I think someone on the West Coast had done it, and then a couple, I think, in Colorado had done something similar. And so they were like, all right, boysenberry is going to bring us tartness. We're going to use good, I think they did citra hops in there. So that's going to bring that, nice, tropical kind of balance. And then we're going to do the lactose, oat, sweet, vanilla. Cool. Bingo, bango. So myself, I work in the packaging department at Dangerous Man. And generally speaking, when we have a beer that we think is going to be like a banger, we'll can 100 of them in a day. And for reference, we generally can about 400 crowlers of beer per day. So, and in Minnesota, we have to do small crowlers, 22 ounces. And so on that particular day, we did 75 because we're like, it's a Wednesday. It's kind of a new experimental style. Like we don't know what's going to happen. And we sold out of 75 cans within about 45 minutes. Absolutely record breaking, so much so that the rest, I was working in the tap room selling them, and I had texted my other two packaging cohorts. They had just gone down the street to a bar to celebrate our event manager's birthday. So a bunch of people at the brewery were all hanging out down the street, just drinking beers and having fun. And then they get this frantic text from me at like 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm like, guys, you got to come back. Like we're almost out of cans of this thing. So they come back and they put together this like crazy 3-person packaging team. And I think that night they ended up packaging 200 more. And then the next day we packaged 200 more and it was gone like within 5 days or something like that. It was absurd. And the interesting thing was a lot of the folks who were coming to purchase it were actually brewery folks. They were brewers who we know. People who are like friends in the industry, and they were like, we heard you guys are releasing this. We've never heard of it. We really want to try this thing out.
Yeah.
So really cool. Lots of really good feedback. We're all crushing on it because it's, it's a delicious beer. And then we had posted on Twitter, which like Dangerous Man does not do a ton of Twitter. And someone tagged Cerebral Brewing in Colorado. and they said, "What? No shout out for the collab?" And we didn't like put the brakes on, but the next day we kind of looked into it and we're like, that's weird. Why would someone say that? As it turns out, on that, I think it was either that day or maybe the day before, Cerebral Brewing in Denver, Colorado had released a boysenberry milkshake IPA. Our recipes were almost identical.
Oh,
Super wild. And so we said it's not a collab, but it opened the door for us to reach out to Cerebral and be like, hey, look, we just made the same beer at the same time, and they thought it was hilarious. So we shipped them a bunch of cans and a bunch of swag, and then they shipped us a bunch of cans and swag, and we tried it. And so now we have this kind of like funny relationship with them. But it's true what Greg says is like a style like that is like when it drops, I mean, it drops, and then it's like before you know it, everyone's like, we got to make these milkshake IPAs.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's similar. Remember when we had this real brief flash in the pan thing for the Brute IPAs?
Yep.
And that came and went like a fart in the wind. Like it came and just, and then I saw a whole bunch of them. And then 2 months later, I didn't see any of them. Like it was like just this little thing that they tried. And I hadn't tried any because, I just was like, and, But did you try any of the Brute IPAs? Did you guys make any or anything like that?
Actually, yeah, we had a Brute IPA kind of a series for a minute. At the end of the day, Rob, our like head brewer in charge of everything and owner, he was sort of like, I just don't really like them. Like, we like making beers that we like. I'm a big fan of them, actually. I enjoyed them quite a bit. That flash in the pan was really hot for me. Because when I like IPAs, I generally gravitate towards West Coast. And although I will be cracking into a hazy one later tonight, but
exception
what I enjoyed about them is that they weren't like, I think a lot of breweries, when they're like, we're going to make a West Coast IPA, they're like, just slaughter them with hops and just make it so bitter and so aggressive that, one glass and you're just like, oh, my palate is wrecked. And what I appreciated about the Brute IPAs is that they were really bright, they were really light, they were very effervescent. They had all that beautiful hop aroma, but they didn't necessarily hit you over the head with all the bitterness. That being said, I feel like some of them were kind of dangerous because, I mean, we made a few at Dangerous Man that were, 7.5%, and they drink like a 4% lager, like a dry hop lager. And, a couple pints of that and you're in the danger territory.
I kind of wish I would have gotten some now if I'd have known that they were kind of had that sort of light effervescence, like non-overly hop taste, which that's my biggest gripe is when I do like West Coast, it's like I generally go with the hazy or the New England IPAs because I know I'm not going to get clobbered with hops, which is, I don't like having the palate wreckers no matter what kind of beer it is.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't think you're a fan of the piney IPAs, and those are the West Coast ones too.
Yeah.
That pine really comes off. I think even if you're trying to do it subtle, it's hard for it to come off subtle. The piney ones.
Yeah.
So you got to follow up?
Yeah. Professional.
I like a follow up. I do think though that Brute IPAs, I missed that was a flash in the pan. I was excited about that style and I was kind of here for it, but I've also got the lactose issue, so when I can't have a ton of milkshake IPAs, I can usually handle about a 10 ouncer, and then I'm kind of feeling it for the next day.
So the Brute IPAs, during my rant, I got into them too late. I think I found the ones that were shady. I wasn't in on the in on the curve there. So Rick, real quick though, before we move on, because we got others to talk about. How's Dangerous Man? How have you guys well, and obviously you're still in production and all that, so that's a good thing. How did you guys fare through the pandemic, and what do you guys, it's kind of a two-parter, what are you guys doing now? Because if anybody has visited Dangerous Man Brewing Company, it is one of it's not the smallest brewery you're going to get, but they pack them in. Like, this is a place where you're shoulder to shoulder the whole time, Doug. If you want to get a beer, the line starts out. I mean, again, it's not always this way. If you get in there when they first open, great. But I'm talking about when people are out Friday night, Saturday night. Dangerous Man is a pack them the hell in as you can. Even when they have like a nice little lounge seating there. I mean, it's a couch with like 3 seats. You usually see 4 people in there.
Yeah.
People sharing seats, people coveting seats. How in the hell does that work during the pandemic?
So we were actually kind of uniquely positioned in the sense that we had purchased the storefront next door to the brewery, like 1 door north, about 6 years ago, and we had turned that into our growler shop and off sale and merchandise. And that was kind of a 2-parter. One, it meant we got a ton more production space behind, so we could actually keep up with the demand of a lot of the beers that people wanted. And 2, it allowed for a better taproom experience for folks, because there's nothing worse than, like Greg is saying, you stand in line for 10 minutes to get a beer behind a guy who's filling up 4 growlers of peanut butter porter. And then like the whole thing just derails. So to be able to tell those folks, oh yeah, just head next door to our shop and we've either got those growlers pre-filled for you, or you can just grab some growlers, or we can fill them over there, really helped to streamline things for people. So then the tap room became a spot where it's like, you're just coming in there to drink the beer on the site, and that's great. And a side note, we don't distribute our beer at all. So it's, that's part of why we're so busy. It's like, you can't just go to the liquor store and get a pack of Dangerous Man beer. You got to come to the source. So when the pandemic hit, putting aside the fact that we all collectively, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Putting aside the fact that we all kind of collectively shit our pants for a week straight, Dangerous Man's a really like homegrown company. I mean, Rob and Sarah, the owners, they're husband and wife. They got kids. They're super calm, gentle people. And all of a sudden you get this wrench thrown in your works, and it's like, what do you do? So we took some time. We all kind of figured the best option was going to be just close the tap room and just focus on off sale. And again, we're lucky that we had a shop where people can just walk in and do that. Some breweries had to really, really adjust their whole systems to turn their tap rooms into these weird, like, mouse mazes of 6-foot distancing, and one person's at the door being like, you got to wear a mask, and people are like, I just want a growler, and it's like a whole to do. We were able to just like snap the fingers and be like, it's just off sale. And we didn't know what that was going to mean. What it did end up meaning was that people came out in absolute droves. I was working in the brewery part-time, and then I was cooking part-time. And I was laid off my cooking job and was a little panicky. And I called Sarah, and she's like, well, just come in, package, we'll see what happens. And I ended up working the most that I have ever worked ever at the brewery. We went from our average canning day of about 400 cans up to over 1,000 cans in a day, split over 2 shifts, usually a morning shift and a night shift. And at one point we were doing a morning shift, an afternoon shift in the tap room side, where we'd have 2 people set up over there canning beer while the shop is open, and they're literally running the cans over to the shop as soon as they can fill them up. And we were selling out of beer, and it was completely absurd. Completely absurd. And the best thing, an absolute blessing. It meant that all of us got to keep our jobs.
Sure.
But it also meant like we had to do some serious adjusting. Then there's all of a sudden there's a can shortage halfway through the year because every brewery's doing what we're doing.
Right.
And I mean, it was wild. And then what we ended up doing was, I think we took a week off. We just took a week off in the summer and just said, you know what, like everyone, we got to breathe for a minute here. And this was after George Floyd. And this was like after all of our uprisings, and everyone was just collectively like, we need a break. So we all took a week off. Maybe it was 2 weeks. I don't know. Whole 2020 is a blur. And then we came back to it, and we actually opened a patio, which has long been a question of Dangerous Man. We're one of the few breweries in the metro area that doesn't have a patio. And here in Minnesota, if you have a patio, you're popular because we only get so many months of really beautiful weather.
Where's the patio?
So glad you asked. So
because I'm familiar with this place, I don't see it.
Because the brewery is situated on a corner lot, and because
Right.
one street is a bus route, and then the other street just does not have any room on it, the city consistently said, you can't do a patio, you can't do it. Until we had proposed, well, what if we do it in the back alley? We share the back alley with Young Joni, which is a James Beard award-winning pizza restaurant. Whom we have a great relationship with. It's a standard Friday night thing. Go to Young Joni, grab your pizza. Go to Dangerous Man, drink your beer. It's great. So we're like, okay. So we set up this crazy patio of like 25 seats in the alley, and it was great. I mean, that was popular. The takeout was popular. We were doing super hot, and then obviously winter came, and winter was tough. I'll say this winter, I mean, and I can only speak from the side of an employee, but I think winter was tough. It's like we had to close the patio. Patio wasn't really like a money maker, but I think the point of it was just to offer people the ability to enjoy our beer again, outside. But then,
again, part of the experience about you guys is that you don't distribute. You have to go to the you have to go there, and part of the experience is cramming in there. It's part of it. Like, I don't really know how to explain that. So like, I'm with you about how the patio probably gave the people that gave your you guys, your core, that ability just to go there and sit there like they normally are used to, because that's the Dangerous Man experience. It's not, in my opinion, the Dangerous Man experience is not grabbing your beer and going. The Dangerous Man experience is going in there, waiting for a beer, rubbing elbows with people, sitting down to someone that you don't know, meeting them. That's a Dangerous Man experience.
And I think part of it too, our house is like at an intersection, and I'm like watching this car. I'm like, you do have to stop at the intersection. That's a thing,
No, why?
Part of the experience too that we really realized is the patio is very different. It's a different vibe. I mean, when folks come up to the bar at Dangerous Man, they're greeted by, we usually have 3 bartenders there, 2 on slower nights. And there's a very conversational way that we do it. Like, when I can have somebody come up and they're just like, I have no idea what I want. And I can be like, how's your day going? I had some folks come in one time, and they were just like, we're not beer drinkers. I'm like, what do you guys like? I'm like, we don't like beer. I'm like, okay, well, like, tell me what you like. Like, one of them
likes, you're in a brewery.
Right?
Wait, but you're in a brewery. Forget it. Go on, Rick.
It happens, and and especially in Minnesota, it's like we can't serve other things. Like, we can only serve the stuff that we make on premise. So one of them says, I really like wine. One of them says, I really like spirits and cocktails, and then one of them says, well, I only really like this kind of beer. Well, as it turned out, we had 2 barrel-aged beers on, one that was really wine forward, one that was really spirit forward, and then we happened to have a beer that was close to the they liked like a Scottish red, and so we happened to have an amber. And I'm like, having that experience, and then the person there, they're like, wow, this is so cool. Like, I didn't have to order a beer that I hate. And then they came up and they got more rounds, and they were having a good time. So what we learned on the patio that was different and a little bit stranger was that you didn't get to have that experience, because people would be sitting down and they have a physical paper menu, which if you go to Dangerous Man, we never did that before. We just had the big chalkboard menu. So they got a paper menu. It tells you the beer, the ABV, some tasting notes, the size, and everything. So then when you come out to the table and you're like, hey, how you guys doing today? They're just immediately, the client is like, 10 ounce of your milkshake IPA. And then the other one's like, yeah, and I'll do the barrel aged beer. And you're just like, okay, cool. You lose, like, a lot of us are saying, like, yeah, we don't really get that interaction anymore. We're just kind of like running beer out to people, and that's fine, but it's not what a lot of us love about serving beer. Yeah. Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Yeah. So, and
go on, Rick.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Yeah.
So after over a year of being closed, we finally reopened. We reopened the tap room. We took a lot. It is no longer shoulder to shoulder, obviously. We took a lot of different things into consideration. Obviously, keeping tables distanced, working with a reservation system, which is super weird, but whatever. We actually kind of updated the whole space. We cleaned up the floors. A lot of things needed to be refinished. A lot of things in the tap room just needed to be upgraded, basically. So we were able to do a lot of those upgrades. We were able to upgrade our hardwood floors, our concrete floors, our entire ventilation system, which is like a big thing because it's a brewery. Ventilation systems are nasty in there. And I took no part in redoing of the tap room. I actually kind of purposefully stayed away from it. And then I went in on my first opening shift. Or I think it was a closing shift on a Friday night. And it was wild. I mean, it was wild to see the tap room abuzz with voices again and glasses clinking and people talking. And, we've got plant barriers everywhere. Dangerous Man has a history of being a brewery with too many plants.
Okay.
Do you know that story?
No.
Okay. Well, if you're familiar with the Facebook group Beer People, kind of Midwest-based Facebook group that's a little bit, it can be controversial at times. And somebody had posted something in there years ago about Dangerous Man, and they said, "What's up with all the plants in that brewery? It's like going into a Chinese restaurant." And all of us read that and we're kind of like, that's a strange takeaway and also mildly racist.
But kind of a compliment too.
Yeah, we were really confused. What a strange takeaway. But it had all these comments of all these people coming to our defense. And then it also had people being like, yeah, there's way too many plants in there. I don't dig it. And then finally, Rob, who never does anything on social media, just made a comment that shut the whole thing down. And he's just like, there's plants in there because we like plants. So plants are kind of part of plants are kind of a part of our identity. So I think when we decided that we needed to have these barriers in between tables, we made them plant barriers. So now there's even more plants in the brewery. So yeah,
I love that. I love when people play into that. You played into
right.
Add some life to the space. That's the thing. Is we're big gardeners here. Well, Jill's a big gardener. I'm just a grunt labor. So we have plants everywhere, all over the place, and I think that just gives it a little bit more character. I think that's cool. You don't see that a lot in breweries at all, really.
That's not. I don't know. That's a compliment, man. That's a compliment.
Yeah.
That's not a dig for me. I don't know how. I couldn't even see it remotely as a dig. But they got handsome models at this place.
Look at that.
Yeah, we got a couple of them. A couple of cuties.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Hey, Doug, are you going to get on your second one here before I segue kind of out of Dangerous Man?
Sure. So this is the first beer I had was in New York. Second one's also in New York. Beers, all New York State beers for me tonight. So
cool.
This is a collaboration between Von Trapp and Thin Man Brewing. That's a Baltic porter made called Lagerkoller. Probably mispronouncing that, but 8.0%. So this is the first time I've seen that. So figured I'd grab it.
Where's the blue steel pose, Rick?
Actually, if you poke around on the website, you'll find it. I know there's at least one person did a blue steel pose for one of the pictures.
Not as bad as the first glass.
Should I use this opportunity to grab number 2?
Yeah.
Sure.
That is right on point with the style. Really a little bit sweet, really roasty. Sometimes you get the Baltic porters and they're a little bit too sweet. That's not how this is. This is leaning more towards the roasty side. Also, some of the Baltic porters you get are 10%. This is 8%. So I think that's why you're getting more of the roasty. But this is really good. It'd be great by a fire. Great by a fire if you had a fire pit going.
So is this one Daniel should look for?
Yes, Daniel, you should look for that one. Like I said, I just saw this for the first time today when I was out looking for stuff to have for the show. So if you can find it, I definitely recommend it. It's, like I said, it's way more on the roasty side than it is on the sweet side. So,
Well, I crack open candy. It's Dandy from Working Draft. I was able to do a curbside with Working Draft. And actually, I was going to segue away from Dangerous Man, but I got another question. But I don't know about you guys, but Working Draft is one of the only breweries around this area that served, if you rolled up into their curbside, one can each. So they weren't just selling 4-packs or 6-packs. You could go and do one can each of most of their stuff. Sometimes you had to do growlers, you know what I mean? Or sometimes on the, the limited batches or the releases that they still do or still try to do, they were doing 4-packs. But mostly I was able to get, I was able to get 16 beers single. So really nice. It was a nice feature. They weren't doing that early in the pandemic, but as Rick says, you kind of, the pandemic sounds like something that breweries, well, the ones that are still around, grew from. So they had to do a lot of changing their business model, business plan. I mean, we heard a whole bunch of changing from Dangerous Man. Every brewery had to do a different level, I believe, whether it be get online, whether it be curbside. You guys had a built-in tap room. Built-in, growler to go place. How about that? For lack of a better term. Yeah. So that was easy for you guys to segue a little bit. But Dangerous Man has. Working Draft has evolved to the point to where they give out. You're allowed to buy one can. Another one I want to shout out real quick is Ale Asylum, which their shtick has been. And actually, let's talk about this a little bit. Ale Asylum has done these beers. If you guys are definitely familiar with them. Rick, you were there.
Oh yeah,
I was there with you. They have done the pandemic in a interesting way with their beers. Whether it be Fuck COVID, whether it be the Murder Hornet beer, and now they have the Karen beer. And I think the way that they're playing the pandemic with these different beers is fantastic because they're playing the pandemic, but they're not doing it in a political, and they're kind of doing it in a little bit of a political way, but it's really more of a way where everybody can embrace. I mean, who can embrace Fuck COVID? Who can embrace a Karen beer? You know what I mean? These are all beers that, but the opposite of that, or not the opposite, but kind of different is the Minocqua Brewing, which I know we're all familiar with. And they've come out more on that different kind of edge. And that's the way to do it too. But that's more of a, in my opinion, separate and divide kind of way to do it, as opposed to Ale Asylum, who's kind of doing it in a way that is kind of, you know what I mean? Like everybody can embrace. Does that make sense? Any thoughts on that, Rick?
Yeah, I think it's I think there's two sides to that, obviously, which I'll shout out one of my favorite newer breweries here called Falling Knife. Falling Knife, they were lucky that they moved into an old space in Northeast that used to house another brewery. They updated the whole space. These are service industry vets. I've worked with all these guys in restaurants before. They're sweethearts. They make killer beer. And they were only open, I want to say, for 6 months before the first shutdown. So they got dealt a pretty shit hand, and they went into, like I said, an old space of an old beloved brewery. So they started kind of behind already. They really had to prove themselves. Ways that they did that: social media, fantastic. They offered free delivery within, I think it was 10 miles plus of the brewery. Killer can art, outstanding can art. If you look their stuff up, it's gorgeous. Dan on this call, we've sent some stuff his way. They did cans where the label, you could pull stickers off of it. Falling Knife. And so one of the managers, owners, had posted on Facebook that he was really upset about they got a bunch of negative commentary a few weeks ago because they're following COVID protocol. They're following 6-table maximums and reservations and 6-foot social distancing. And it was an interesting thing because like it got me thinking about it, and it got me thinking because when I'm looking at a brewery now during COVID times and I read reviews that say things like, love this place, didn't have to mask up, then I'm like, I don't want to go there. But if I read a review that says, love this place, felt really safe, bartenders taking COVID seriously, or in this case of Falling Knife, a negative review that said, something like, this place sucks, they wouldn't let our 12 top in, and then they split up our table into 2 6s, and it's like, that tells me 2 things. That tells me, one, that the reviewer is kind of a dumbass, and 2, I'm more likely to go visit that place because I'm like, oh, they're actually taking this seriously, and they care. They clearly care. Like, they're not just going to be bent by the Karens of the world and just be like, oh yeah, sure, okay, we'll give you guys a 12 top, no problem at all. And then next thing you know, you get some inspection and you get shut down because you're breaking CDC code or whatever. I don't know if that fully is like, if that makes sense to what you were saying, but like,
yeah. And let's see here real quick. Doug, do you have any comments on that?
I'm with you, Rick. If they say, if you're seeing a review and saying, this is great, they didn't require me to mask up, I'm avoiding that place like literally like the plague. I'm not going anywhere near that joint. One of the things when we had Carla Lauder on, and she was talking about this one brewery there, Sunday River Brewing in Maine, because that's where she lives. And we stayed up there on like a quarantine vacation last year. And that place was jam-packed. And I was like, nope, I won't even go near that. And she warned me. She said that place has flouted the COVID rules all the time. And some people, that's an appeal, but those people are idiots. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, and especially being, so close to Wisconsin, no offense, Greg, we've seen it. I mean, we actually had a really interesting time last summer. We went out to our friends who have a farm in Wisconsin, and they were doing a big pizza farm thing. We went out, and the day kind of devolved. Honestly, we didn't end up getting pizza. There was some big snafu, but the guy making the pizza is actually a friend of mine. So next time we saw him, he's just like, I got a free pizza for you guys. We're like, dope. But then on the way home, we were just kind of like, we were a little bit miserable. We're just like, man, like we went out there, like it was nice, but it was also like we didn't really get to do what we wanted to do. And so we decided to stop at a brewery in Hudson. I don't know my geography super well, but just on the other side of the river, basically. And we like them. They make excellent beer. They're also really sweet people. And they have a big outdoor space. And so we're like,
what's the name of the brewery?
Hop and Barrel.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we were like, yeah, let's just go. Well, who cares, right? And apparently, like, the entire city of Hudson was just like, we don't care about any of this. And that's not a dig at Hop and Barrel. I mean, they were obviously put in a crap position because they just got people all over the place not wearing masks. They only had like 2 or 3 people working. They've got live music outdoors in their parking lot. So that's what kind of drew us in. Is we're like, oh, well, we can be outside. That's great. And it's like, yeah, but you still got to go inside to get the beer. And that's that thing where it's like you got guys walking up there and they're walking up like this, they're like, oh, can I get? And it's just like you got these poor bartenders and they're like, hey, like you got to wear a mask. And they're like, who cares? Just give me a beer. And it's like, you can't. There's the 2 sides to it, obviously, and it's just like in a situation like that, I'm like, man, I'm hurting for you guys because you just got dealt a crap hand, like, and at that point, what can you do? Like, I guess the only thing that you would be able to do is be like, all right, like we're shutting it down, like you guys, we gave everyone a chance to be cool. None of you were cool about it, so like nobody gets beer tonight. But then you lose all your sales on a Friday night, so
yeah, it's a weird double-edged sword there. That thing with the brewery I mentioned, they said that they would not adhere to it. It wasn't a matter of the bartenders or the workers. The brewery itself, the brewery was, nope, I'm not following that. That's bullshit.
Yeah, and that wasn't the case with Hop and Barrel. They definitely are like the type of place, like, Paige knows one of the owners. They're definitely the type of guys who are like, no, like we believe in this. Please, everyone, like let's be smart. And then it's just we happened to go in on a night where mass stupidity took over.
Yep. So
Did you guys stay there, or did you skedaddle when you saw
We
it?
grabbed one and grabbed a table like in the far back corner of the parking lot. And unfortunately, we got our beers like right as the band was ending. So we're just like, whatever, let's just go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Greg. What?
no worries. Lauren says, Ale Asylum, fun novelty. Are they tasty? They're very tasty. They are. Ale Asylum is I'm pretty sure, the leading beer seller of a brewery in Dane County, in Wisconsin. Dane County is a county that encompasses Madison, Wisconsin. So they are good, and they do a good. They're good, yeah, for sure. Fuck COVID and Karen Rage. Not the same brewers or excellent beer names. I believe they are the same brewer. I believe they are both Ale Asylum, and Ale Asylum also has the Murder Hornet beer too, and Fuck COVID too. And there's another one too that they have. So yeah, they're doing a thing, and yeah. So Rick, I have to segue, man. I have to get to one of the fun things that if you're Rick's friend on Facebook and page too sometimes, but I think it's more Rick. I'm not sure. These guys run an Airbnb, and we've heard. I don't know if Rick wants to tell us some funny stories that I've heard, some frustrating stories that I've heard. Some of these people aren't. They don't all go good, though. Sometimes they go a little bit awry. So I don't know if Rick wants to tell us any stories, but Rick definitely has to tell us a story about the cat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure. I forget how that ties into the Airbnb, but there's an incident that Rick went through with a cat, and
yeah,
I'm just going to remove myself and let Rick talk.
So that actually works really well with the beer that I just opened, which is one of my personal favorites. From a place I used to live in Montreal, so I love Uni Brew, and Belgian beers were actually my second craft beer love.
You used to live in Montreal?
Yeah, I thought you knew that.
Can we say Montreal?
Montreal. So when I first got into craft beer, like a lot of folks, I got into IPAs. Before that, it was like I just drank Molson, and then a friend turned me on to Little Scrapper, which is an IPA from a Winnipeg brewery, and a Winnipeg brewery called Half Pints. And I was like, wow, beer can taste like something. This is amazing. And then a couple of years later, I discovered Belgian beers, and of course, Fin du Monde was one of my absolute favorites, and it still is. I come back to it a lot. For translation, Fin du Monde means end of the world. And yeah, that's a good way to talk about the cat story, because the cat story was completely unexpected. And what happened was Paige went out of town, and we always seem to have weird things go down when Paige goes out of town. I don't know why, but whatever. So she goes out of town. She just goes up to her family's cabin. Nothing crazy. And I decide that I'm going to have myself a Saturday fun day. I'm off work the next day. I'm like, I'm going to get on my bike. I'm going to bike over to St. Paul. I'm going to visit a couple of breweries over there. There was a food truck festival going on at the time. So I was like, I'm just going to eat food, drink beer, and then I'm going to bike home and like watch Star Wars and just have a day, And what was happening during that day is at this time we ran 2 Airbnb rooms. Right now we just run 1. We turned the other room into an office, but at the time we had 2. So I
love that he's people watching during the show.
Yes.
Well, we live on a one-way street, and someoone's just driving the wrong way up the street.
No, not your street.
Be safe, please. Okay, they're good. They're turned around. So we had 2 guests that were already there, and then we had 2 that were checking in that day, and that's totally fine, totally normal. We have a back door with a code, and we're just like, we send them directions, like, yeah, your room is like to the left of the bathroom, and there's 2 other guests, whatever. And so I'm biking around. They text me at some point, like 3 p.m. or so, and they're like, hey, we just checked in. Place is lovely. Thanks so much. I'm like, awesome. Let me know if you guys need anything. So I keep biking. I'm having a good time. I end up hitting like one more brewery than I was planning on because of this particularly excruciating hill getting back into Minneapolis from St. Paul, and this brewery is right at the top of it. It's Venn Brewing Company. They're one of my absolute favorites.
They're great. I love them.
So good. And so I stopped in there because these guys opened up and they're like, yeah, we got a Kolsch, we got a Pilsner. I'm just like,
oh.
So I went in there and I had a Pilsner, and I was just like, that's what I need after hitting that hill that I was just on. And so then I get home and I don't meet the new guests. But either way, I get home and I order my Chinese food. I got some Szechuan beef. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
It sounds like, man, this is
yeah, I'm super pumped. The food comes. I crack another beer. I get upstairs. I go into bed. I got my laptop set up. I got my beer. I got my Szechuan beef. And one of my cats is sitting at the foot of the bed just growling. And we have two cats, Tank, which is a very normal cat, and then Simcoe, who's a rescue, and he kind of looks like a weasel on a good day. And it's Simcoe, and he's just sitting at the foot of the bed, and he's just growling, like, and his fur's all up, and I'm like, what is he doing? That is so strange. And so I put down my Szechuan beef and I put my laptop aside, I pause it. It's like right at the part where, you know, Darth Vader's like, you are working with the rebellion and all that thing, and put that down, go over to the bed. I'm like, Simcoe, what are you doing? And he's growling, and I look under the bed and I see this glowing set of eyes. And in my brain, I'm like, oh, that's just our other cat. So I say to Simcoe, as if he could understand me, I say, that's just Tank. Calm down. And sitting next to Simcoe is Tank. They're both sitting there growling. I'm like, this is super weird. So I look down again and I say, who are you? And I stick my hand under the bed like maybe 3 or 4 inches, and this cat loses its mind. It loses its mind. It comes flying out from under the bed. It grabs Simcoe by the neck. Tank, the other cat, is attacking this one. So there's 3 cats rolling around. I separate all of them and I grab the strange looking one and I kind of throw him down on the bed. And I'm like, whoa. And I just look at this thing like, I don't know who you are or how you got in here. I can only hold him for about a second because then the other 2 cats jump up on the bed. And now they're attacking this cat too. Ball of claws and teeth and everything, and there's blood. Like at this point, blood is literally flying, and all I'm thinking in my 31-year-old mind, or maybe 32 at the time, I think 32, is, oh, I hope I know how to clean blood out of the carpet. Fun fact. And so I wrestle them all out of their thing, and I throw the cat into the bathroom. The bathroom is like just right off our bedroom. I throw the cat in the bathroom and I close the door, and the other 2 cats are sitting there like ready to rumble. And I kind of catch my breath for a second, and I'm like, what's going on? So I put on a shirt and I put on some shorts and I go downstairs, and all 4 guests are standing at the foot of the stairs, and they're just like, the 2 who had just checked in, who are British, in a very charming British manner, the fella says, what's going on? And I say, did you guys bring a cat with you? And then the other 2 guests slinked back into their room and just closed the door. And the guy says, no. And I said, are you sure you didn't bring a cat with you? And he said, mate, we've been out in the woods camping for 6 weeks. This is our first time in an urban area in 6 weeks. And I'm like, all right, I need you guys to do me a favor. I'm going to come running downstairs with a cat. I need you to open the back door when I tell you to. And I'm just going to toss this thing, okay? And the guy's like, sure, whatever you need. And I don't really put together in my head at this time that I'm covered in blood. Like there's blood dribbling down my arms, down my legs, like everywhere. Like it is a massacre.
Who is this? Wait, this is cat blood, right?
It's my blood mostly. Yeah.
Oh, because you got scratched with all these cats going crazy.
Claws and teeth.
Your cats are not declawed, right?
They are not. No. And we trim their claws, but we don't declaw them because I don't believe in it.
I'm not saying you should or not. I'm just reacting to the whole. Yeah, I'm getting the whole grasp, pun intended, of what's going on.
So I go upstairs and I like kind of look at the bathroom door and I take a few deep breaths, and the other 2 cats, they're still sitting there like they're ready to rumble. And I'm like, the only way this is going to work is if I open this door, I grab this cat like by his paws, like by all of them, and just hustle it down there. And so I try to do that, but it breaks free and it lands on the ground. And then the other two cats start attacking it. So again, I'm pushing the other cats off while I'm trying to kind of hog tie this guy up. And I get him and I run down the stairs and I say, open the door, open the door. And the dude, this was brilliant. It was the most impressive thing I've ever seen. He opened the door and held it open like with his hand and his foot. And with his other foot, he was able to successfully keep our two cats back so that they didn't run out after the thing. And so I go to throw this cat and he says, just throw it, mate. They always land on the feet. And so I throw this thing and cat launches off my hands, just digs into me and launches clear across the backyard. He goes flying into the garage, bounces off the thing, lands kind of on his feet, stands up, gives one last big, and then just takes off down the alley. And I don't know what to do, so I come back in. I come back inside, and the guy's there, and he's just like, he looks at me, and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, what happened? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, that wasn't your cat? And I said, no. What?
Why would I toss our cat out in the yard?
And he goes, I thought that was your cat. And I said, no. Why would that be our cat? And he said, well, when we checked in, that cat was pawing at the back door. So I opened the door and I let it in. And I said, what did the cat do when you let it in? And he said, rolled around on the carpet, rubbed up against a few things, acted like a cat. He was just acting like a cat. I'm like, okay. So mystery solved, right? Mystery solved. But now I have to deal with the fact that I'm bleeding everywhere, and Paige is out of town. So I call her and I tell her what went on, and she's like, "Well, first things
covered in blood. You called your wife. Covered in blood."
Yeah. And so I go back upstairs. I just like tell the guest, I'm like, I'm so sorry about this. I'm gonna go to sleep, and he's just.
But she was one of the first. Right, but after that, she was the first person that you grabbed the phone and you're like,
yeah,
let's stop.
And so I woke her up out of the cabin, and I explained the whole thing, and she's just like, I don't understand, but like you need to clean out your cuts, like big time. We have Neosporin, we have all this stuff. So I clean myself up, I get all cleaned up. I go back to bed. I turn off Star Wars. I didn't finish my beer or my Szechuan beef because I'm just like shaking, And then the next morning I get up and I start getting really like paranoid because I'm like, well, I got attacked by a strange cat. Like, I'm gonna need to go to the urgent care or something. And I call Paige and she's kind of like, well, yeah, that's a good idea, but like, just kind of monitor yourself, see how you're feeling. And I start feeling really weird. I start feeling like delirious and like kind of like really out of sorts. And I know I can't really like grapple with reality. And so I'm like, I'm just gonna go. So I call an Uber. Take an Uber to urgent care, kind of far from where we are. And I check myself in and I'm like, yeah, like I got attacked by a cat. And they're super confused because they're like, your cat? And I'm like, no, a feral cat or a stray. Right, and like, right. Why was it in your house? I'm like, I don't know. Like, can you stop asking me questions? Like, going. And so Paige, I tell her, I'm like, hey, like I'm at the clinic, just come and meet me here, like, please. Because I don't know what I'm doing. And I get this doctor, this bargain bin of a doctor who like doesn't want to give me rabies shots. I don't know why. He's like, well, what if we found the cat? And I'm like, this is a time-sensitive issue, sir. I don't know where the cat is. And he's like, because if the cat doesn't have rabies, then you don't need to go through this whole process. I'm like, I'm not really willing to gamble with that. And that was when Paige came in and the doctor starts explaining it to her. And if folks know, Paige is a medical professional. She's a nurse. And Paige is just like saying the same thing. Like, she's like, this isn't a question, sir. Like, he got attacked by a strange cat. He gets rabies shots. And the doctor was like super hesitant about it. And then finally he's like, well, okay, like if you think that's what we should do, it's like,
you're the doctor.
You're the doctor. So I got the shots, and they were horrible. You get 3 on the first day. If anyone's ever looking forward to getting rabies shots, I don't recommend it. You get 3 on the first day, and then you have to come back. I think it's like it's like 2 weeks later for another one, and then like 10 days later for another one, and then like 5 days later for another one, and then 3. It's a whole to do. Yeah.
Meanwhile, we got people bitching about taking 2 for COVID, but aside. So you get your shots and you're clear and everything's good?
Everything's good, except for the medical bill, which I got as a Canadian. I wouldn't have to worry about that, right? These are these things, in Canada, it's like you pay for in a situation like that, like you might pay for like an ambulance, or like you might pay like for maybe the shots, but it would be like $100. Like it'd be very, very affordable. And this is actually an ongoing saga. I just started a payment plan the other day. This summer will be 3 years, and I've just started a payment plan, which now we're getting like really off topic, but they sent me a bill. Even though we have insurance for, I think it was $10,000 or $11,000. It was like an astronomical amount of money.
What?
And I was blown away, but I was also like, well, I guess that's what not dying costs in America, even though we're insured. But Paige, of course, was like, that seems a little high even for insurance. And so then I called the hospital, and they were really confused. They're like, oh yeah, that seems weird, but like, can you just pay it? I'm like, well, no, I don't have that money sitting around. And then I ended up getting a supervisor, and they like looked over the bill because the itemization on the bill didn't make any sense. And they were like, yeah, this doesn't make sense. Something seems wrong here. And then they just sent me to collections. and then collections was like, well, that's not really our jurisdiction. Like, you need to take that up with the hospital. So basically over a year of just back and forth. And then we ended up getting it. Yeah, we ended up getting it down to it's lower than what it originally was, but it's still like, it's not money that we just have floating around. So
no one has $11,000 is sitting around ready to go because a feral cat jumped in your house because your Airbnb people let it in, and they didn't really mean to let it in. But then again, the cat almost kills you, and you got to get that, and then you got to pay $11,000. And let's go through, Rick, while you're talking. Let's go through some of these comments. American healthcare is a joke. Rick already knows this. Lauren wants to know, did the guests leave you reviews?
They did, actually. They left us a glowing review. If I search back in our reviews, I could probably find it. They left a very glowing review. I spoke to them a couple days later, and honestly, the dude felt terrible. He felt so bad. He was absolutely shook up. And I think for them, they were pretty shook because they had, like he said, they were in America doing summer camp for kids and things. Like, they're like camp counselors. And so I think he felt awful that he let a cat in, and that whole scenario had to happen.
So was that the door guy though? Was it because Lauren says the door guy is a superhero.
The door guy is what we're talking about,
right?
Who held the door open and
right
at the same time.
Right. So he, Rick, in my opinion, he did. I mean, again, everybody can have their feelings, but he did his job by helping. I mean, he helped by clearly bringing the cat in, but he definitely helped by getting that damn cat out.
He did, and also, like, to his credit, on our Airbnb listing, we do list that we have 2 cats, and also we post a picture of each of the cats, and this one did look a little bit like one of our cats. So I'm sure they probably saw it, and again, pawing at the back door, they're probably just like, all right, that's probably their cat. Like, it's a very honest mistake.
Yeah,
but ended in a really ridiculous way.
Yeah, it's not like like, hey, we're gonna let in this dog that has mange, and it looks like it belongs here. Like,
yeah, we did. So when that happens, they kind of recommend that you contact animal control, and we did, and we put up. There is a weird button to this story, but it's mostly just my paranoia. So we called animal control, and we had a really nice officer assigned to our case, and they brought this cage out there, and the officer came by twice a day to change out the food in the cage to try to, like, catch this cat potentially. And I mean, I told the officer the story, and she was like, I've been doing this for 16 years and I've never heard a story that crazy before. And she also followed that up with, given the trauma of that situation, that cat's not coming back. However, she's like, I'll do our due diligence and we'll put the cage in the backyard. So put the cage out there. It was a mess. They put food in it every day. It was the middle of summer. The food rotted immediately. We had like horse flies everywhere. We ended up catching a cat once and it wasn't the right one. And like the officer came down and I was just like, just let it go. Like, but so when the first few weeks of the shutdown started, I don't know if this was popular for you guys, but everyone here started going for walks. Everyone just would get out of the house 3 times a day and go for a big long walk. And Paige and I were on a big long walk, and we were about a block away from our house, and I saw the cat. And the cat was inside a house at the front door, and I have never seen anybody in that house ever. So I'm convinced that the cat actually lives there and is building a secret cat army to come and attack me.
What if it's a ghost cat?
Or it's a ghost cat.
It's haunting the house.
It's plotting its revenge on Rick.
If it's a ghost cat, it's like the ghost in the movie Ghost that could move things by force of will, and that's how they, the cats were weirded out because there was a ghost cat in the house.
Yeah.
So I think this is my friend Kyle saying, "Hey, baby, I'm a little bloody right now. You call it Paige."
I don't remember what I said on the phone. I think I just said like something happened.
What JC wants to know, was this the same doctor from Cannonball Run? And Lauren says, what kind of crazy urgent care did you go to? Right.
St. Louis Park, the finest there is.
Right. Fucking Canada.
Yeah, I think it was funny because like it was a Sunday too. It was a Sunday, so it's like you're at the hospital. It's kind of the B squad. But we actually went out afterwards. This restaurant I used to work at in Linden Hills does this wonderful festival every year it's a street festival called Ogtoberfest. It's in October. And it's a bunch of German beer. It's a bunch of really good food and just a bunch of good live music. It's super chill, super calm. And Paige, after we finished up at the hospital, was like, do you still want to go to Oktoberfest? I'm like, yeah, I want to go to Oktoberfest. Come on. So we went out and we had some oysters and listened to some music. And I, probably looked a little bit rough, I guess.
Hey, who's the guy over there with all the knife marks on him?
Yeah.
He seems like he had a rough day. He should get up a beer.
Something happened. Yeah, terrible opener.
Worst
right.
opener.
Terrible opener. All right. Find the cat.
Find the cat. Have you ever met a cat?
That's about right.
Pet Cemetery.
Yeah.
Oh, Jerry. That was a good call.
Good call. Right. What's up, Doug? Are we ready for your third?
We're like an hour and 15 in, and I want to grab my third if you don't mind.
Oh.
This is the one that I've been looking forward to. Another Southern Tier Nitro Coconut Truffle Imperial Milk. Their Blackwater series is phenomenal. I am not a big fan of coconut, but because of Southern Tier and their dessert beers are ridiculous, I'm going to try it. Oh, that sounds
Wow.
Yeah. Damn. Okay.
All right, let's see how dirty this freaking glass is.
That was an attention getter, Rick. It was like, whoa, okay.
Look at that. That's lovely.
So, Doug, does Southern Tier then? Do they have the little nitro widget in the can?
No, they do not. Not like I had recently had the Guinness Nitro Coffee Stout, and that has that in it. Do you mean the one where it's like clangs around like a ball?
Yep.
Yeah, this one doesn't have that. They don't do that for their nitros, but their nitros are excellent. It's like it's their Blackwater series. Yeah. And I don't know if you've had any of the Southern Tier beers, but
I've had a handful.
Yeah, their dessert beer stuff is out of this world. But their nitro series, it's really, really good. I sent Greg like a it was I think a hot cocoa nitro
cool
beer it was like hot cocoa. It was like but not hot. Remember that one, Greg? I sent that to you. And like, this is awesome, and it was just like a cold hot cocoa, but delicious. So,
Paige and I actually had a tradition for several years of Southern Tears, pumpkin, and what's the other one? Warlock.
Warlock is awesome.
Yeah, where that was like kind of a fall tradition. That was like our fall kickoff, was like get Warlock and pumpkin, and just like Southern Tier is remarkable. They make such good beer.
Yeah, this is like coconut on the nose and on the palate. I'm not really sure. I know what truffle is, but I don't know how it tastes. That makes sense. Rick, you probably have a better sense of that than I do, because the fact that you cook, and I am just give me a recipe and I'll follow it kind of cook. So, but coconut flavor and scent. So, but it's really smooth, really just goes down really nice. It's 10% ABV, so that's might be a little bit dangerous. Or dangerous
man. All right, that last beer that I poured, I didn't show it.
Yeah,
I'm not going to.
Apparently, it was not good.
Yeah, I don't know. We're not in the market here of trashy breweries, and it's one I like too. So I will leave that one be. I don't think I showed anybody, did I?
Well, I did. I poured one last week because it was. I aged it late.
This is good.
So, what's that one, Greg?
Let me taste it first before
before you render judgment.
Ooh. Yeah, this is a good one. We have Delta Beer. Mocha Milk Stout. Big mocha. Almost so much mocha that it's coming off like coffee.
Okay, so the mocha part you could play that off as coffee-ish if it's like a mocha that you would have where you get it from Starbucks or something like that.
Right. Roasty. It has that mouthfeel of for that milk with the lactose. Not too much. A lot of roast though. This comes off more, I don't know, comes off more like a porter actually. Nice thick roasty porter. Yummy, yummy, yummy. So Rick, one of the things that I was looking forward to having you on was one of the things that we love to talk about here is we love to talk about beer, but we love to talk about food the most. And we like to shame people around here for their food because, well, why not? Why not? But before that, I do have a clip that's related to food that I want to show everybody. It's kind of crazy. So,
as per the usual for our videos, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on. I might have to pay it twice because I'm even unsure what the hell's going on here. But here we go.
Hey, whose aguacate is that, bro?
Yo, chill out, bro.
What?
Did he just attack them for a mango?
I think it's isn't it a big avocado?
Arcangel, whose aguacate is that, bro?
Yeah, whose avocado is that?
I love that he attacked him with a can.
Dude.
It can't be an avocado. It doesn't look like unless it's
I don't know what that is.
It's a huge,
like a giant mango.
Right, but like, is this real though? And the reason I ask is because there's a lot of people laughing in this video. Watch.
Arcangel, whose aguacate is that,
Especially at the end.
Chill out, bro.
You notice the guy that's at the register there, right there in the start. At the end, he's laughing as they're what he's eating,
Right.
whatever the fuck he's eating.
Right.
So maybe it's staged. It's ridiculous, whatever they're staging. But
Did you hear the slurping?
Yeah.
Yes.
Gunhead, whose aguacate is that, bro?
He clearly says who's avocado. He thinks it's an avocado, right?
is it avocados to me don't look like that?
No, but I'm with you, but I'm just telling you what he's saying.
Gunhead, whose aguacate is that, bro?
Avocado head?
Whose avocado is that, bro? Whose aguacate is that, bro?
Chill out, bro.
Also, there's a lot of civilians jumping in back there too. Am I wrong? Like, it looks like there's people that are fucking pajama pants back there, like trying to pull that apart.
Right. Rick, you have anything for this?
I got nothing, but I do have a funny kitchen story, if I may.
Yeah.
This, so the hitting on the head. With that,
cat?
like,
Can it top the cat story?
nothing involving a cat, thankfully. Yeah, exactly.
You like drunk avocados, mangoes, sheep pans. Who gives a fuck?
So years ago, I used to work with this really terrifying guy. This is actually my first job ever at McDonald's when I was 15 years old. And I'll plug McDonald's in the sense that I think that like everyone who wants to take cooking seriously as a career, do your time at a fast food joint because it will make you great. It will help you out so much. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. It might seem really mundane, like you're just like flipping burgers, whatever. Go ahead, Doug.
No, I'm not even a cook, and I'm just saying I think everybody should work a service industry job at some point. Like, really, you have to just to get a sense of how that is, and so you can understand that shit's really fucking hard.
No. Right, but I'm still trying to see the lineage from, going from being McDonald's to what Rick is today. Go on.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I'll say, like, if there's one thing that you learn at McDonald's, and I was just ranting, Paige will probably mute it because I was just ranting at her about this a couple weeks ago. They teach you systems. They teach you like the way that an order comes into the kitchen, the way that you begin and prepare and then finish and send that order. Even if it is just toasting a bun, putting sauces on it, wrapping it up in the thing, and putting it in the little under the heat lamps. You don't think it at the time because you're 15 years old and you're like, I just want some spending money or whatever. I'm saving up to buy a car. But it really does instill this like interesting sense of like rhythm in like how a kitchen works. And, for someone like me, like that led into going into a little more of a fast casual restaurant, which then later led to a steakhouse, which then later led to like an independent bistro, which later led into fine dining. And all the while not fully like in my front brain, not really saying like, oh yeah, like I learned so much at McDonald's, but it wasn't until like, years later you start to put that together and you're like, oh wow, like yeah, you learn a lot in a place like that. But this is a crazy story. It's a crazy McDonald's story because, and I feel like every fast food place is going to have this guy. We had this older fellow that worked there. His name was Daryl. Daryl was terrifying. He made everybody uncomfortable. He was our custodian. And that's because he started as a cook, but people didn't trust him with sharp and hot objects. Daryl was just kind of scary. Like he just had this way of just putting you at unease no matter what. I mean, you walked in the room and you could be like, hey, Daryl, how's it going? And he would say something like, my mother again. And you'd just be like, I just got out of science class, Daryl. Okay. Older fella, a little bit strange. And he used to tell these stories that would like be all about how like strong he is, which is really weird because he was a very small guy. So I don't know if there's like some weird Napoleon thing there, but he told me this story one time about how this guy that he worked with in this other kitchen scared him. like was hiding around a corner and scared him. Boo! Huh? And he's like, and he freaked out. He got really upset about it. It's like, as you do, you get upset when you get scared. You know, it's a normal thing. But the way he told the story is he was like, yeah, I started plotting my revenge that day. And so then what he did was he took sheet pans, like 2 sheet pans, and instead of just scaring this guy a few weeks later around the corner, what he claims he did was the guy came around the corner and he smashed him on the face with the sheet pans. And then he complained about how he got fired. And I was like, well, I mean, sir, you assaulted a coworker. Like, yeah. But when I saw the dude grab the tinfoil thing and start hitting him with it, that's like immediately what I was thinking. I'm like, oh, there's Daryl just getting his revenge.
I have a small fast food story because I worked at a Hardee's for 2 years.
Oh, my man. I love Hardee's.
Yeah. We don't have them here anymore. But in high school, I was like kind of the guy that I worked any shift I could because I would just, all right, this sucks, but I need money because my parents were lower middle class. They didn't have money. And, I was driving a piece of shit Escort. I had to repair it all the time. So anyway, I'm in there. We're in the middle of a dinner rush. So dinner rushes in fast food are like just mayhem. But systems, as Rick pointed out, is there is a pattern to it. It's fucking crazy. You are just nonstop throwing shit on grills. It's crazy, but there's also a pattern to it. Well, someone forgot to stock enough patties coming into dinner rush because you always make sure you have enough available so you don't have to run back in the freezer and do all that shit. We're low on patties. The one guy goes, hey, man, I'm low on patties. And I'm like, I'll go grab some because I was closest to the freezer. And I was like, I just happened to be there. And I'm like, okay, great. I go in. 2 of the managers are fucking in the freezer. I opened the door.
That escalated quickly.
And I open the door and see
wow.
pasty white butt just pumping away and some grunts from the person in front of them. And I just shut the door and said, we don't have any patties. And I swear to you, they didn't even know I opened the door, I don't think, because they never acted weird around me or anything. They were like, and I was like, hey, first of all, I don't give a fuck where you want. I don't give a shit. But I was like, I need to.
I'm inclined to say in the heat of the moment, but you're fucking in a freezer.
Yes,
right.
That's the thing.
Right.
It's not like a crisper. A crisper's a certain temp, and maybe you can kind of swing that. In a freezer, this shit's 32 degrees.
Fucking in the crisper is like the name of a sludge metal song.
Yes. Do not mind me. I need some meat more than you do. Now I'll never be.
I would like to point out these are not 2 people that you would like to watch. Fuck.
Right. It's never that way. Listen, Doug.
Hey, again, this is not shaming.
No.
It's all about being free to be yourself.
It's never that way, though.
Sure.
Listen, right. You go to the nudist beach. It's not Tom Brady's wife. I'm just saying.
No.
Right.
Again, it don't have to be. But I wanted to just fucking throw bleach all over everything in that room.
Keep it crispy in the cooler. Fucking in a crisper. See, again, this is in my opinion, again, you guys could argue with me, but it's not about the headline, it's about the comments. So, Doug, your story was funny, but the comments are better.
Yeah. It's not as funny as Rick's with the fucking cat. Now, granted, I'm saying funny in that.
Comments were funny
I'm not
there
admiring
too.
the fact that you were maimed by cats. I just mean like.
And then,
Oh no, it is
and
funny.
then
I
stalked.
mean,
And then stalked. To me, this cat stalked. He like
It was like
he
waiting for the
positioned.
opportunity.
Well, right. He positioned himself. He moved in when Rick was vulnerable because Rick wasn't watching. He did his deed, and then even after he was stalking Rick, when Rick and his wife were walking, this cat was right there stalking Rick. So this cat is psychotic, and I'm with Rick. I will be concerned.
Thank you. That's what I've been saying.
Right.
What's gonna be funny is Rick's gonna post a photo of this cat at his front window doing like this motion.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Look, see, Rick is more bolder than I would because I wouldn't even be able to sit where Rick is right now because I think that cat would be looking in those windows. So like, you're crazy, man.
Maybe he was driving the wrong way up the street earlier.
Yeah. Casing the joint over here.
While we're here, though, this is something we can talk about, Doug. This is a controversial thing. See, I am that guy that could never sit where Rick is at night. I need blind. I can't deal with dark windows. Does that make sense? So like it's cool during the day, but if it's dark, I have to have the shades down. I have to. Or I just think people are watching. I just don't feel comfortable. You guys clearly Rick is not that way, so it's cool. But Doug, do you have that? Or Rick, I'll give you a chance. But Doug, do you have that? Where again, I can't do it.
It depends on the windows. So where my wife and I live, our street is like that's a bus route. So
okay.
So we close curtains there, but like our bedroom's upstairs in the back, and it faces our backyard.
I can't do it
there. But we're not super like it's basically like lower floor. Is where the curtains are shut. But I don't know what about you, Rick. But other than your freaking wide open fucking room there.
Right, but that's like his front porch, isn't it, Rick? Like a screen front porch?
Yeah, and like Greg has seen the space. We're on Park Avenue, which is a major street. We're also across the street from a park, so it's like we don't see houses on the other side.
Right. Yep.
But we're also kind of up on a hill. Our block of Park Avenue, like everyone's up on a hill, which is charming, terrible to cut the grass, and really not fun for shoveling snow because you have to shovel 22-ish steps. But that being said, I don't know, like when I'm up here, I'm just like, it's fine. Like I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, definitely like ground level. Like I lived in an apartment in Montreal that had like ground level. It was the only ground level apartment I've ever had. And, it was on an alley in a medium part of town. Like, not like a scary part of town, whatever that even is. But there was things. You definitely had some things going on. And yeah, like it was definitely one of the first things was let's buy some curtains and just close that because I don't need someone creeping in here while I'm sleeping because that's definitely what can happen.
Right. So I guess Manny says that if I know someone's looking, I'll reenact the mother-son scene.
Fucking Manny. Will you be having a bowl of cereal while you're doing it?
All right. So there are two massive subjects that I still want to get with Rick. So we'll see if I can get through them. Let's start with number one, which is we're kind of on topic with that. Right before the pandemic started, or not right before, but before the pandemic started, you and the wife were building up to a big project that you guys had going on. And then the pandemic struck, and then we've talked to Paige a little bit about it, but I don't know if you want to talk about what you guys had going. Hey, Doug and I are here. I don't know what Doug's doing tomorrow, but so you can talk as long as you want, brother. But tell everybody what you guys were dipping into and where we're at today. Yeah,
well, I mean, it's a long thing. My side of it is like I've wanted to open a restaurant since forever, since before I started cooking. I just always thought opening a restaurant would be really cool. And then it kind of became a really serious goal. A few years ago, I had helped I have this history of opening restaurants or like being involved in restaurant openings. And I was involved in like number 5, I think it was, or maybe 6. Here in Minneapolis, a nice French place called St. Genevieve that I absolutely adore. And I just needed a break. And so I took a break, and that's when I started getting into more front of house stuff. And I was like, well, I'm going to focus on like craft beer and maybe like I ran food at a fine dining restaurant, stuff like that. And then, after a few months, I just was kind of mulling it all over. And I was like, well, maybe this is the time to do it. And that was like, I want to say that was like 4 years ago now. And so I kind of proposed the idea to Paige. I'm like, what if we do this thing? Like, can we open a restaurant? Is it possible? And of course, enormously supportive. Paige is like, yeah, like, let's do it. That'd be super cool. Like, we love it. And clearly, like, I've got the experience, and Paige has huge passion for hospitality, and beer and beverage expertise in general. And so we did a pop-up. We did a pop-up dinner at this place called Cook St. Paul, and we called ourselves Houndstooth. And we just said, this is Houndstooth, a pop-up. And we sold out almost immediately, 2 seatings of, I think it's about 38 or maybe 40 seats in the restaurant. We did, I think it was a 4-course dinner with pairings for everything. I think we might have done beer pairings for every course, which is bold. Not a lot of like fine dining chefs will do that. But we're firm believers in like that beer has a place at the table. So we did that. It was huge. We did another one, and it wasn't so huge. It was around state fair time plus back to school time. So there was a lot of like, I think, difficulty for folks to actually get tickets, but that's fine. And then we just like really kind of sat with the idea a little bit more. We're like, well, why the hell not? Like, let's open a restaurant. Let's actually start doing this. So then we started talking to people, and we started realizing, at that time we were also purchasing a house, and we were getting our Airbnb going, and we were starting to really love Airbnb. Crazy cat stories aside, we found that 99% of the folks who stay with you are wonderful. They're coming from all over the world. They're staying, and we have a very intimately set up Airbnb where we interact with our guests kind of a lot, just because it's very shared. It's a very like cohesive space. Obviously, we sleep upstairs, but our guests will be using the kitchen, the main floor, front door, like all that. So we really started to find that we appreciated that. And I sort of started looking back into like my favorite places that I stayed when I traveled. And my number 1 was Longman and Eagle in Chicago. If any Chicago people are on this, hopefully you know what I'm talking about. Chicago, Longman and Eagle is a Michelin star restaurant. For all intents and purposes, they're a brown spirits tavern that just does incredible food, and they have 6 hotel rooms. I've stayed there a handful of times. It's always great. It's always wonderful. And so then we just kept percolating on that. And we're like, well, why doesn't this exist in Minneapolis? Why doesn't Minneapolis have some tiny little like 50-seat restaurant that's just got great beer, great spirits, great wine, and a place to sleep at the end of the night? And the more people that we talked to about that, the more people would come out and be like, that's fucking brilliant. Like, let's go. And so suddenly we start getting involved with people who have money and people who have a little bit of pull, and they're all saying like, yeah, this is great. This is great. Let's go. Like, let's do this thing. And then we're doing pop-up dinners and private dinners, and we're getting all this momentum going. We got a broker, we got our lawyer, we got all these people, and it's happening. We feel like it's finally happening. And then of course COVID happens. And so we had built up a lot of momentum over 4 years. And then I feel like with that, we just kind of like stopped. I mean, everyone stopped. That's just the nature of what COVID kind of did to the world, and is still doing to the world. And so,
well, especially in this industry too.
Yeah. And then weirdly enough, in 2020, one of the biggest struggles for us was finding a building, because our concept is unique. We are looking for a 2-story building that's a reasonable price that we can hopefully purchase, that we can do all this stuff to. And we'd looked at all these buildings and nothing made sense, nothing worked. And then of course, middle of 2020, we find a building that we're like, this is perfect. It's in the part of town we want to be in. It's the right square footage. We bring our contractor through, we bring like our architect through. They're like, this is it. This is the building. And we spend 4 months going back and forth with the seller on this building. all the while still doing our thing. I'm working at the brewery. Paige is working for the law firm. We're doing private dinners for a lot of friends and investors. And then finally, it was actually just, I think about a month ago, where we just decided like we had to pull out because the person who was selling the building just really became a stick in our spokes, for lack of a better term. They had all these expectations about what they wanted from us, most of which we were not able to provide. And it's just unfortunate because we were all on board and like it just made sense. It felt like the right thing. But then as we went down the process, we're like, this no longer feels like the right thing. So kind of took a bit of time, kind of like, unwound a little bit. And we're just like, okay. We went to La Crosse for a couple days and just like drank some good beer and ate some good food and just hung out. And then we came back, and a friend of mine had set us up with this cocktail company that's opening in Northeast Minneapolis called Steady Pour Cocktails, or Steady Pour Cocktail Company. And they're industry vets. They're awesome. They have this event space, and I meet with these guys, and they're super cool. They're super nice, and they're basically like, this is what we want because it's COVID. Like eventually it's going to be an event space, but right now, like Jeff, the guy behind the company, he's like, I just want to make my cocktails, and I just want to bring chefs in here to make their food, and I just want to do like dinner series. And the guy's got a full kitchen, like he's ready to go. So I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Let's go. So this is my plug, by the way. I know we kind of talked about doing a plug, but this is my plug. We have a dinner series starting in less than a week, actually. The first dinner is going to be on Thursday night, and it's going to be it's time for a sponsor. And it's going to be a 4-course pre-fee dinner with 4 courses, 4 cocktail pairings. And we're just going to take care of people the best that we do. We love course dinners. We love making, like, my brand of food is like very like hyper seasonal, vegetable focused, creative, bright, lots of springtime colors are going to be in there. And Jeff is super pumped. The guy making the cocktails, like, I made a few trial dishes and he was just like, dude, I'm so excited. Like, I'm so inspired. And so it's really symbiotic. And the way that we're going to be doing this series is Thursday, Friday nights for the next 4 weeks. And it's going to be a different menu each week. So, yeah, I mean, cheers to that.
Cheers
to that.
Yeah. I was going
to do
what your style was for cooking, because everybody has their own sort of interpretation of what they do for food. Like I said, I am not a chef. I am a person that says this recipe looks cool, and I will follow it to the letter because I can't freestyle at all when it comes to cooking.
Sure.
So yeah, you're saying like seasonal and vegetable focused more?
Generally speaking, yeah. So one of my favorite chefs that I ever worked with is a chef in Montreal, Danny Bolduc. He is a really interesting fella. His background is obviously like, Quebecois French, but he's just such a vegetable head, and I love that about him. I mean, this guy could make an 11-course dinner and only use meat like 2 or 3 times. He does such a great showcase of vegetables, and it was so inspiring for me when I worked with him, because I was like, oh yeah, like I love cauliflower. How do I usually cook cauliflower? Well, I usually make soup, or I usually roast it. And meanwhile, this guy's out here like stuffing it with truffles and or cooking it in a shrimp stock or something, like really unique, interesting ways to approach vegetables. So that's where I get a lot of my inspiration from. And then also the seasons, which some folks might laugh and be like, well, you're in Minnesota, like how much seasonal vegetables do you get? And it's true, in the winter it's a little bit difficult, but for winter dinners that we've done, we focus on things like ferments, we focus on root vegetables, we focus on breads, grains, heartier things like that that make sense in this region. If I were to say what my training is, I think specifically it would be French focused with maybe a hint of Italian. But definitely, yeah, technique driven. I just love playing with food. It's inspiring and very rewarding.
Can I ask you if you'd ever had the chance to run across one of the back when we first started watching HG or not HGTV, but like Food Network and all that stuff. There's a guy in there that I really thought was funny, and I thought he had a really good grasp of how to do fun stuff with food. And he was in Montreal. Was Chuck Hughes?
Yeah, Chuck Hughes.
Yeah, and that guy's story is like, like major alcoholic, like would black out in other cities, and like you're just like, wow, how'd that guy get through that? And he's just, you watch how he cooks, and he's just got this whole passion for it, and it just like there are people that say, well, I'm passionate about food, and it doesn't really come across, but you just know that's kind of just him. He's just this kind of a little bit goofy, but like really, he knows that's what he is. Have you ever had a chance to cross paths with him by chance?
Interestingly enough, I have not, but I do. One of my friends here, who is a chef, she knows him through something. And so when she heard that I was from Montreal or lived in Montreal, she's like, "Oh, you must know Chuck." And I was like, "I actually don't." And she was like, "Weird. How do I know him and you don't?" It's like, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, Montreal is full of chefs. Like, it's part of the reason, like, I left Montreal for two reasons. One was because I met Paige, and she's fantastic. And two was like the scene was getting really fast for me. I was a little bit like, it was starting to get to that level of like, yeah, all of a sudden we finish our dinner shift, we have our beers at the restaurant, we go out for our post beer, our post work beers. And, that's usually the part of the night where I'm like, all right, like, let's get some poutine and then go to bed. And then suddenly the cooks that I'm with are like, no, let's get some Coke and party all night. And it's like, for me, I was sort of at a point where I'm like, I'm not interested in doing that, handful of times. Yeah. But then it's like, all right. I mean, I don't know. I like mornings. Like, I like waking up in the morning. I like having coffee.
I like breakfast. Right.
Yeah, exactly. I love breakfast. I love going to my breakfast spot, getting my omelet. And it was like, suddenly it's like, yeah, you wake up at 4:30 in the afternoon just to go to your shift that night. It's just
right. And then do the same thing over. I'm with you.
Keep going. Yeah. So it was like a nice, it was a nice, like, sort of, it was very fortuitous, I guess, and in the sense that I was able to be like, okay, I've learned a lot here, and now I need to just kind of bring it back. And what's interesting about Minneapolis, to kind of keep on my tangent, is like, when I left Winnipeg's food scene when I left was very limited. You had a lot, and Winnipeg is, it's in the middle of the country. It's a prairie city. It's a big city, but it's very like, people there don't like change a whole lot. So a lot of the chefs who were kind of coming out and doing their thing were chefs who had lived and worked in Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, LA, New York City, Chicago. And they lived there and they learned, and then they brought their concepts back. And so when I left, there was a lot of that stuff starting. Chefs being like, okay, I'm going back home and I'm opening my restaurant. And, some of them got bad reviews. So one of my favorite chefs in Winnipeg, this fella, Mandel Hitzer, he opened this restaurant called Deer and Almond the year that I moved away. And I don't think this review is still public, but his first review from the food critic was kind of negative. They didn't like that there was negative space on the plates. They didn't like that they played hip hop in the room. They didn't like that that it was dark in there. They had all these weird criticisms, and he's like, this guy worked out in NYC for years, and he's like, this is what food is. Like, this is what restaurant culture is. So, so I left when that stuff was starting, lived in Montreal, got to experience the full breadth of like, this is what restaurants are. And then coming to Minneapolis was sort of like a good hybrid of that. Like, it's the Midwest nice, right? Like, people are a little more modest. They're a little more calm. You definitely have that like crazy coked out chef thing here, but not to the extent that you see it in the bigger food cities. There is a little more like humbleness. There's a little more like, okay, like, let's just focus on making good food. How about that? So.
Really nice.
I'm going to open a fourth beer here, if you don't mind, which is normally not my case. But
it's Friday.
Yeah, but it's a weird one. St. Peter's Old Style Porter from England.
Interesting.
Okay.
Look at this bottle, though. How
Yeah.
fucking cool is
The
that?
whole presentation is
love it.
kind of. Yeah, I've never heard of that one. You, Rick?
I've had St. Peter's before, but not that one.
Right.
Yeah, they don't make a huge amount of beers, but this is the first one I've had. I've never bought their stuff, but there's a place near where I work, which I work from home now, so that's an hour away. That has a whole section of just English beers and British beers. It's really interesting. So
That's funny because I actually went to one of our local liquor stores here earlier tonight to pick up some stuff for the for the call here, and Paige was like, "Can you pick me up some English beers?" And like Fuller's London Pride or something like that. And it's just
I'm talking weird shit like oil can and things like really oddball Thomas Hardy stuff. Like, if you guys want some of that, I can send you lots of that stuff. I can get
seriously, because that was the thing, and we've had this conversation a lot where it's just like, man, where is all the European beers? Like, where have they all gone? And it's great. I love walking into a liquor store and just seeing like all these really cool local interesting beers. But sometimes, like, yeah, man, I just want like a Boddington's pub ale, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah, this is interesting because they call it an old style porter and 5.2 ABV, which is, if you're getting a porter, that's right in it. And it's roasty, but it's crisp, which is like not your porter you find around here. Like, that's not how it works. Usually it's just your super roasty, which is good, or you got a bunch of adjuncts in it. But this is like just kind of your straight up. If you were in a pub in England, this is kind of porter you get.
Cool.
That's exactly what you'd expect to have in your glass. So I think I'm gonna have to find some and send you guys some, since you guys freaking sent me beer, and I was like, holy shit, I can't repay you for that. That's like, did you just sent me stuff that it would be impossible to find.
Yeah, they'll never leave beer out for them. They'll only take one. So
Yeah.
like,
Let us forget that.
Let's talk about that.
I'm
We?
never gonna forget that shit, Rick.
Here's all these beers. Take them all. Nope. We're only gonna take a handful.
We're just gonna take a few.
Right.
That's sort of nice.
Rick, we do before we go. I have a video, but we don't have to see that. You wanted to talk about something, so I'm gonna let you. We've grilled you on everything that I wanted to grill you on, but one thing, and that's a big subject, so we'll leave that go for the next time. But you wanted to talk about someplace you've been recently?
Oh yeah, we took a trip to Nashville, Tennessee. Yes. Nashville, Tennessee is kind of a city that we've really grown to love. This is Paige. It was Paige's second time there, and it was my third time there. Sorry, and it was kind of a combination thing. So because for Houndstooth we want to open a hotel restaurant concept. The last time we were in Nashville, which was in 2019, we wanted to try to find an independent hotel, and we couldn't, to save our lives. It was ridiculous. But then as soon as we actually got to Nashville, we found a handful of them. They're actually quite common down there, like things exactly like what we want to open. So we decided, like, then and there in 2019, we're like, well, we have to come back to the city and we have to do some real research. And we did. We reached out to people who actually run and own and operate these hotels. And we're like, hey, we're coming into town. We're going to spend a few nights at your spot. Like, we're going to be gathering information and kind of seeing how you guys do things. And they're very open and very warm and welcoming, which was fantastic. And so the two places we stayed at, if anyone's curious and traveling to Nashville, was the Van Dyke. The Van Dyke is really neat. They call themselves Van Dyke Bed and Beverage, and they're in East Nash, and they're just this charming, beautiful hotel. They theme their rooms after beverages, which is how we theme our Airbnb rooms. We have the gin room and the whiskey room. And so out there, they got the gin room, the whiskey, the tequila. We stayed in the beer room, which was very athletic themed. There was this like old school leather punching bag in there, which was like funny and weird.
Hey, we don't kink shame on this show, so
yeah, exactly. And super accommodating. Like they definitely had that sense of service that like that's what we want to do. Like we want to make sure that when people come to Houndstooth, like they're taken care of the minute they walk in the door. The first night that we were in Nashville, it was torrential downpour, crazy rain. The front door of the hotel wasn't open yet. We walked out there, we're getting all wet, and one of the people, the general managers, was in, and she just opened the door. She's like, come on in, don't get wet, like come in from the rain. We're like, oh, hospitality, man. So yeah, we stayed there. Great cocktails, great food. They had a guest chef at the time. And we chatted with him for a little bit. He's like, my family farm in Arkansas like produces all the vegetables that we're cooking here, plus some of the grains and the grits. And we're just like, dude, like this is amazing. And so yeah, so after that spot, we stayed at the Russell, and the Russell's a totally different concept, which is also extremely inspiring because we're really motivated by like community outreach and like being a good steward for your community and for people. The Russell, they're founded on the principle of helping unhoused folks. So they have they donate a generous amount of their profits to helping unhoused folks. I wish I could like airdrop this over to you, but I'm just going to pull up this little stat. When you check in, they have this
unhoused.
No, that's a great way to say it because
I love that. Well,
yeah, instead of saying homeless,
unhoused.
Well, homeless is
they're missing houses. That's a different.
Well, yeah. Homeless and unhoused. It's kind of like, in my opinion, illegal alien and undocumented immigrant.
So,
right. There are ways to say this.
When you check in, they have this big wall. Like I said, I wish I could send this to you, but it's a wall of kind of some of their stats and then some of the people that they help. But they have this thing in the corner and it says, how you'll help. The average weekend stay at the Russell provides the following accommodations for someone in need: 16 nights in a safe bed, 100 clean showers, and 30 prepared meals.
Wow.
So and they're saying like that's like a weekend stay. So I don't know what their business model looks like, but that's impressive as hell. And when we were there, I mean, they were relatively booked. Like there was a fair amount of people in there. So that's like a different kind of concept, but it also really shows you like the extreme of like what you can do as a business. And, I know we often get into this, like into these political things. Maybe we haven't gotten too far this time, but it's that thing where like some businesses are just like, well, I don't know what I can do. And it's like, look at these guys. Like these guys are running a boutique hotel in Nashville, Tennessee, and they're helping people in need, like aggressively so. And apparently they're slated to open another location at some point.
And people look for places like this. One of the things is we bought for our whole house for Christmas was Bombas. If you guys are familiar with them, but they're a sock company, and everyone you buy, they give one to every sock you buy, they give someone, they send it to somewhere where they need it. Now, again, I would have never envisioned myself spending $80 on some fucking socks. Right? $80 fucking dollars we spent on some socks. But the socks are A, nice, and B, it didn't really matter because we knew that was a way to get people something that they needed, and it was just, so it was even more. It was really less about the socks. I've worn them twice. They're nice. Don't get me wrong, but like, and actually the family loves them. But like, it was more about, you know what I mean? Like I'm doing something good, and that is a selling point for a lot of people. Also, Rick, before I go, and while we're still on this, the reason why you guys are my friends and I love you, so obviously I'm rooting for you, and I always want to see good things. But the reason why I believe in what you guys are doing, not only that I know you guys have the knowledge and all that cook stuff and all that, blah, 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 whatever, the fact that you guys are focusing on customer service and the fact that you guys are focusing on hospitality are, in my opinion, two things that are going down in our society. So you guys are doing something that, in my opinion, that we need more of. And I think you're going to get a really good reception and word of mouth when people realize that you guys are bringing that hospitality and that customer service, because it's lacking and it's getting worse with, in my opinion, our businesses, especially the big ones.
Yeah.
But even the small people, and I can see, we know some small breweries are like, this is our beer, like it or leave it, and fuck you. We know a lot of mid-sized breweries, and we're not going to mention them, but there are some and big breweries in Minneapolis that we've talked about on the side that customer service sucks. If people actually realize how bad their customer service was, they wouldn't buy their shit off the shelves. If they went to the brewery and got the same treatment that some people get at these breweries, they would never buy the stuff off the shelves. So the point is that customer service and hospitality is something that people don't focus on. And as long as you guys focus on that, the rest is gravy. I don't really care how good your food is on some level, because if you make me feel at home, ultimately, I'm going to think your shit tastes better. Like, that's really ultimately how it works for me. Like, if I have a good feeling walking into your place, I'm going to be more receptive of what you're trying to feed me, literally.
And piggybacking on that is, I'll fully admit, the catalyst, like the true catalyst, the thing that just like said in my head, this is it, was bad experience at a premium restaurant. We ate at a restaurant, and if folks want to do their homework, Paige did write an article about it. You can do a little bit of research. I'm not going to name the restaurant, out here. Not that anyone I think would even be able to know, but we had a really bad experience at a very premium restaurant here in the cities. And we both left with a sour taste in our mouth, and we both, a sour taste in our mouth and also like a big dent in our pocket. And we both kind of came home and we're just like, why did that have to be like that? Like, we just paid top dollar to be treated kind of like trash. Like, we didn't, we got treated the food was fine. It wasn't exceptional. But again, if we had been treated better, I might have thought the food was better. Right. But the reality was every single moment of the experience, from walking in the door to ordering our drinks, to ordering our food, to getting our food come to our table, having our table bussed, to leaving, every point of service for us was just such a flaw that when we got home, we felt like we wasted money. We were just like, why did we even do that? Like, what a waste of our time and our energy. And so that was really like one of the big moments where it was like, we can do better. We know we can. We know that we can do better. Just welcome people in.
Yeah, I would say that wasn't a waste of time, in that that was a point you go, I'll never go to that place again.
Yeah.
You go, and that's something that, like, when Joel and I do things where we're like, that was great, I will definitely do that again. That sucked. I'm not ever giving those people my money.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe that was a hefty bill, but at the same time, then you go, well, yeah, that sucks, but now I know not to go there again.
Yeah, and I'll say we've been back there, I think, twice. Once was because there was a friend in town they wanted to go there for brunch, and we're like, all right. And then once was actually because the restaurant had reached out. They read Paige's article and they were like, you guys should come back, and like, we'll take care of you, sort of thing. And we did, and they didn't. And it just felt like the whole thing just kind of felt like, all right. And it's like, I'm not going to be out here telling people like, avoid this place like the plague, because it's like, I'm sure if you look a certain way and if you have a certain, affiliation to your name, they're going to take care of you. But we're just not those people. And that's unfortunate, because honestly, anyone should be able to come into your place. We were just talking about this actually at the brewery the other day, because we had this fella come in who only had $4. And this is a story where a couple of us had served the same guy at a couple of different times. And
yeah, what was that?
I think Paige is trying to get me drunk.
this.
No, I had opened it. I guess I have some more Duvel to drink.
All right. Let's do it. I opened a fourth one. You can too.
Right. It's a Duvel. You'll get over it.
Yeah, and so we were talking about this guy, and he had come in, and myself and my coworker, he had brought up the story first, and then I was like, oh yeah, I've served that guy too, like same thing, and this is pre-COVID, and fella comes in, looks a little bit rough, whatever, and he's like, I only got $4, like, can I get a beer? And it's like, yeah, of course you can, and have the guy sit down and sit at the bar, and it's like, what do you like to drink? And for my coworker, he was like, I don't know, I like Guinness and stuff. So it's like, okay, so we set him up with like a chocolate milk stout. We're like, how do you feel about that? And then, my coworker like comped him his first beer because he's just like, yeah, dude, like hang out, we don't care. And then he ended up like paying for his second one and whatever. And the dude ended up being like totally like, came in kind of looking a little rough. But then once he sat down and you started chatting with him, he's just a normal guy, just like a normal dude who probably like isn't making a ton of money, probably lives close to the brewery, but probably looks at a brewery and says like, it's not for me. Like I'm going to go to the dive bar where I can get my $2 like Schlitz or whatever. But he got welcomed in by one person, and then he got welcomed in by another person, and then even another coworker like chimed in like, oh yeah, I've served that guy too. He always just gets like one, like a really short pour of something. We're like, yeah, that's that service. Like you can take care of people, just because some guy's coming in looking a little rough is like you can, but they're just like, yeah, can I just get a beer? It's like, yeah, of course you can. Like we're here for you. That's what this is all about.
Man. I wish that was more the way things were for every service industry.
Yeah. I just don't think people care, Doug. And I think it has to be, I don't think businesses care. And I also think that it has to be a point of what you do. Like it has to be something that you talk about all the time, either as an owner. It has to be in your business plan. It has to be intentional. You can't just say, I'm going to have good product and everything else is going to be, everything else is going to work. No. It has to come from the top down, and you have to almost like breathe and eat it, like Rick and Paige do. You know what I mean? Like you could feel that passion. You almost have to have a passion for it nowadays. I really think it's just like I think people normally just did it, and now I just think people just shred that shit down. And just like, look, I need to make money. You take it or leave it. You like my product or you don't. Like it's one of those, and I'm just like,
yeah, I'm leaving.
Yeah. So, yes, thank you. Thanks. Paige always says shit better than I could ever. Right? It has to be part of the fucking culture. Thank you. I add the cuss words, but it has to be the culture of the place, right? And the culture is set by the owners, and that's just the way it is. So if the owners, if I really feel that passion from Rick and Paige, as a person who works there, I'm going to give that passion. But if I feel that Rick and Paige are bullshitting. And they're just like, oh, we really care about customer service. And then you can see how they really treat the customers. I'm going to treat the customers the same way because that's what they're doing. And I need to save my job and I need to do what I need to do. Yeah. So, Rick, I'm going to you have an option here, buddy. Unless Doug has a follow-up, we got to get you out of here. Otherwise, we'll be here another 2 hours.
Yeah.
So you can watch. I'm going to play a video. You can watch it with us or you can leave. It's up to you.
Let's watch it.
All right. Well, I warned you.
Oh, no.
I'm asking you a question. Do you live here? Do you? You live here? And you think your mother would appreciate you doing that to other residents?
She didn't do anything. It was her.
So now do you live here? Because you're the one who's screaming like a little baby.
Sorry. Yeah,
Okay, so you come up here, you want to have fun. We want to do our practicing. So you don't think we should respect each other? But then you say, I'm not nice, but you're the one who started.
That was me. She said that.
That was you?
Yeah.
So you should say you're sorry, because you don't treat adults like that.
Yeah,
I didn't do anything to you. You did it to us.
we were just having fun.
So are we. So are we. But we can't have our fun because you're screaming and we can't concentrate.
Oh.
Just let us be kids, please.
Oh, and what? We can't be kids at 54? I can't be a kid anymore either? Okay, that's really funny. Juvenile. I hope one day you grow up, and I hope that people.
She's 54. She can't be a kid anymore, dog.
Hey, listen, I'm almost 50. I'm about a fucking kid all the time. And you know what? Here's the thing that so Greg, you and I both have kids who are teens, and what's been interesting for me through this pandemic thing is just seeing how you understand like them having an opinion. Is you actually when I was a kid and I was 16, I had an opinion, and my parents were like, "You're fucking 16, shut the fuck up." And it wasn't that they were being mean. That was just how you parented back in the fucking 80s. Like,
Right.
Shut up. When you're an adult, you can have an opinion and I'll listen to it. But that's not how that works anymore. Kids have opinions, and they have ideas and feelings and things that you need to actually hear what they're saying. And I'll tell you, I struggle freaking mightily with listening to that because I have that whole, hey, you're a kid, and pound it into my head. Like, you need to respect me and not disrespect. Well, I don't think those kids were disrespecting them. They're fucking kids. They're just making a little racket at a basketball court. And that ninny comes out with a tennis racket. Like, what are you doing? Shut up.
There's so much wrong with that video. Again, I could go an hour. The thing that really annoyed me though is like she's like, "Oh, everybody has to be quiet." What is this, Wimbledon? This isn't Wimbledon.
You're in a public
Wimbledon, and not only is it not Wimbledon, Serena Williams. Again, if you want to go there, Serena Williams and Roger Federer and Andre Agassi and all these people have played in full stadiums with thousands of people making noise, lady. So just because these kids are making noise, lady, and interrupted your white privileged tennis match, oh my goodness. I am not a person who would explode in public. You guys know I'm very, very calm. Even my rants. If I caught that lady saying that stuff to my kids, that
would not go well for her.
I would be in her face because it's so. Talk about disrespectful on 6,000 levels. You don't talk to anyone's kid that way. First of all, you don't. You want to talk about what adults do and what kids should do? Oh, don't even get me started. You don't talk to a kid like that unless they're like causing physical harm on someone or they're like doing something illegal. You do not pull up on my kids like that at a park where they should be allowed to play and scream and be kids and have a good time. Right behind my house is a park. And there are sometimes I talk to the lady, I'm like, I don't want to hear these kids, but these kids need to be out there screaming and hollering. That's what they do. That's what a park is for. Triple fuck her. Sorry.
We live across the street from a park. And I will tell you, like, you know, as folks who don't have kids, and like, this park comes alive. It comes alive. Like today, we're in a gray spell over here. We haven't had sunshine in like 10 days or something. It's like the fucking Pacific Northwest or some shit. And then finally today at like 11 a.m., the sun just came out, and it was out all day. And I came home from work and like my eyes were burning because I'm like, oh, I haven't seen the sun in so long. And the park is just alive. The basketball court has got a pickup game going on both sides of it. Like kids are everywhere. They're running around. People are grilling out right now. Or like when I got home, there's like kids like playing soccer and like all this. I'm like, that's good. That's a good thing. These are good noises. Like this is what your neighborhood should sound like.
Right.
You need to live in a dead silent neighborhood. Something is wrong with you. That's scary. That's some fucking like Hannibal Lecter shit. Like you need silence in the neighborhood. Like kids scream, kids play. Like that's a thing. That's a real thing. You know?
Yeah. We have neighbors who have little kids who run across several yards, including ours. And initially, it's a bit annoying that they're running in our yard, but at the same time, I'm like, can you imagine their parents? Their parents have had those kids bottled in a house for fucking 5 months. Like they're probably like, this is the greatest thing ever. Let them run around the yards and I'm just like, yeah, as long as they don't run over our fucking plants, I don't give a shit. So
yeah.
Right. So, Rick, thanks for coming on. Any last words, buddy?
Yeah.
Um,
You can rate beers if you want to, too.
what's that?
You can rate beers that you drank, too, if you want.
Yeah. Do you have anything left in the kitty?
Eh, no, I don't have any final words.
That's horrible. What do you want me to say?
I feel like there's like things that you're supposed to say, yeah, like before you cheers or something, but I don't know. All that comes to mind is so long and thanks for all the fish.
Thanks for all. That was a good
Rick, we'll talk to you, man. I want to talk to you later in the year or early next year if we can.
Yeah,
production too, so you're welcome to stay.
Fridays are hard, so we'll work on that. But thanks for coming on and educating us and telling us some stories. It's great. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
Awesome. Okay, Doug. So I had 4 beers and I hated 2 of them. So
you don't have to include the ones you didn't like. That's fine.
I'm not. Don't worry, I'm not. I had the working draft vanilla cream ale, fantastic, especially for people who like cream ales and coffee. It was great, crisp, nice balance, like you said. One for the spring, and that's where we're at today, aren't we?
Yeah.
And then I also had the mocha milk stout, which I'm still finishing. Really roasty, nice. Touch of lactose, not too crazy. At least I didn't think about it, but some people are sensitive with the lactose. It's a good one, and I'm happy with it. Great.
Okay, so none of these were terrible or anything like that, but this was.
I like that Karen. She was a real. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So
still annoying me.
This is probably in last place for me, only because cream ales are not generally my thing. I just bought it for the name. It was good for the style. It's fine. You'll be surprised to know that because I'm not a fan of coconut, this was. Again, it's just more that I don't like coconut all that much. Right, because I'm always going to try their beers because.
Was it balanced? At least it was too much.
Very balanced. If you like coconut, this thing would be your fucking jam. It's fucking great for that. If you like coconut, I generally don't. So these two tie for me for the top. The Baltic Porter and the Old Style Porter, both really good representations of their style. This probably is a little more spot on for the style. This is way more roasty than the Baltic Porters I normally get. Normally, I get them with a little bit more sweet with the roast, but this is way more on the roasty side. But I like that because that's kind of more portery to me, even though Baltic Porters technically aren't porters. But yeah, these were both excellent. All the beers were good I had. So
excellent. So before we wrap here, let's go through some of these comments because I just want to make sure everybody gets heard. Great chat. Looking forward to going to MSP again.
Me too. And I'm looking forward to going to their place because when they open that, I'm going.
So this is when the stupid lady we showed. Who's the fucking child? Right. Wow, that lady.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You're in public, lady. Like, right. Like, you were distracting me. Listen, don't the best people, like, isn't that one of the best, like, the best people can perform when people are screaming at them and when it's, like, loud and, like, that's when you're supposed to turn it on, lady?
Yeah, man. If you do stuff like fucking basketball and somebody's yelling, that's part of what you have to deal with. That's part of the whole thing. And I get that tennis is supposed to be a quote-unquote quiet sport, but
no, it's
park.
Right. Okay. And like Jay, she said, she thought she was at Wimbledon, and if I recall correctly, they're silent. They're silent when they play, but once they stop, it's a big uproar. Even a lot of times, the referee or the umpire, or whatever, has to say, you people need to quiet down. So it's not a quiet scene. It's never stop. And like the U.S. Open, come on, they pack that stadium. It's never quiet. Stop. Stop.
Also, when Tiger Woods was a kid and he would be putting, his dad would be screaming at him, so that he would learn how to putt under pressure.
Right. NFL teams pump in crowd noise to the practice.
During their practice.
Please stop. Anyway, Greg is very calm, right? That lady totally forgot what kids do and what childhood's supposed to be. Well, she's a 54-year-old. Can't she be a child, JHG?
She can. And guess what? If you're a child, then you don't worry about all the noise.
Right. You make your own noise. Right. There, say white privilege. Yep, I said it too. Great storytelling from Rick. He has
For sure. That was
There's
great.
more. There's more too. Yep.
Yeah.
Freedom to run over Doug's plants.
Hey.
The kids. Well, I mean,
Actually, I'm going to tell you, if the kids ran over those plants, I would not be the one yelling at them. Joe would be yelling at them.
oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
But there's a nuance though. I'm with you. I have that space where the kids do run through our backyard. We've had these conversations before. Yep. Thanks, Rick. Yep. Great stories, Rick. Yep. As Agassi used to say, this isn't golf. Thanks, Paige. And on that note, we will see you guys next week with our friend Chris Kern.
And
Who is-
Kern.
Yes, who is funny as hell,
Oh, man.
sarcastic as hell, and he's a wine guy. So for
Yeah.
all you winos, it's going to be some time to, if you have wino questions, this guy knows
Yes.
a shitload of fucking wine. He knows more about wine than probably I know about beer.
Yeah.
And he's really
And he knows
good.
a shit ton about music, too. So it's
Shit ton about music. And I got invited back on their podcast, so I'll be making another appearance.
do it.
So
Be
we'll
more
talk about
prepared
that too.
Be more prepared this time.
Fuck you. Fuck you. And on that note, we're gonna